It's real, the mic stays warm. Hosted by the dad with lots of charm. Insights are sharp and data's tight. The lands already and the jokes online. Hot takes, real talk, keeping it true. From the high school halls to podcast cues, live a little, learn a lot. Turn it up, this show is hot. Grab your coffee and let's get into it. No filter, no fluff, just real talk. Let's do it. Ready or not, here we go. It's time for Muffin to start the show.
All right, welcome to Hot Takes with the Murphman. I am the Murphman here with my co-host Connor. How are we doing today, Connor?
Doing good, Murphman. How are we doing today?
Doing pretty good. Had a busy week so far and getting ready for summer coming. So looking forward to that. How about you?
Me too. I honestly want this school year to be over with and have all the pool parties during summer every weekend.
What are you gonna be pulling?
Pulling all the girls. I'm joking.
All right. Well, good luck with that.
And I'm gonna have all the pool parties every weekend.
Pool parties are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Wait till you turn 21. You can go to the Elmont. That's where you want to be when you turn 21. Trust me on that one.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's still a thing. I've never heard anyone talk about Elmont.
The Elmont
is
the pool that's over there by Montecillo.
Never.
It has a slide and everything, and it's an adult pool party.
Never.
Every weekend. It's pretty cool.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, I don't go because
Is it adults as in like 20-year-olds or like?
No, 21. Once you hit 21, you can go.
Oh, but is it mostly 21 or is it like older?
No, that's why I'm not going. Because it's for younger people.
Okay. I'll check it out next year. 2010, 21.
Okay, Connor, I think you want to go back to college and take some math classes.
Next year I turn 21.
Well, okay. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, next year you turn 21. You're going to turn 20 in this year. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
Well, it's because 2 years from now is when summer's going to be, because you're not going to go in the winter. That's why I was like confused.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm just waiting until
2 years. That's why.
Okay. Technically 2 years. Yeah.
That's what threw me off. That's why I was like, wait a minute. You're not going to be 21 next summer. That's what I was referring to.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, you guys, before we get this podcast started, let me tell you a little bit about us. We're not experts. We are two people here sharing our stories, sharing our experiences, and just letting you know how we see life and what we've experienced. We're not experts. We just play them here on the podcast. Right, Connor?
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes we do get a little heated, and sometimes a little adult language might slip out, so we do apologize for that in advance. It's not a lot, but it's just in case it happens. We want you to know that, And we also tend to get sidetracked a lot. We'll do our best not to, but you never know what's going to come up. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm going to tell you what, Connor, let's talk a little bit about what this episode is going to be today, and then we can get the show started. What do you think?
Sounds great.
So let me tell you, we have the episode 37, the college and career crossover, building a resume while figuring it all out. That's what we're talking about today. Resume building and getting ready to get a job, which might be something you might be doing this summer, right, Connor?
Maybe,
or going to school. We haven't decided yet, right? Yeah. I say we, you haven't decided. But resumes are something that we need to have, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So let's get the show started. Let's ignite the fuse. All right. Structure is your greatest freedom, and your resume is the blueprint for your future. And stop saying you have no experience just because you haven't had a 9-to-5 yet. This episode's about translating your daily hustle into the language that recruiters understand. So basically, can you have a resume in high school, Connor, if you've never had a job?
Yeah.
Explain that from your point of view.
From my point of view, from what I understand, you could have a resume off life experiences of what you could bring to your job, what you've done in your life, like any achievements, any accomplishments, any skills you have.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, that's exactly. It's called a functional resume.
yeah.
What functions do you have? What skills do you have? You may not have had a job, but for example, babysitting. There's people that babysit, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's people who work in school activities. Student council, sports managers, trainers, all that stuff, right? That's all experience. Whether you realize it's not a job, 9 to 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is a job where you can get skills. So that's something we got to think about when we talk about resumes. Okay, because we talk about mostly college students right now, but the podcast is supposed to be from high school through young adulthood. So it has to fall in there. So if you're in high school and you're listening to this, understand that you can build a resume based on your skills. You don't have to have a job to actually have a specific skill set to get you hired. Okay, because if you're a manager and you're going to hire someone for running a ticket booth at the movies, you don't need to have a 40-year-old, right, with a lifetime of experience. A teenager's good, right? Yeah, it's not hard to say, this is the movie at 10 o'clock, 2 tickets, please. Want some popcorn and soda with that? Right?
Yeah.
There's another thing that as you get older, certain jobs you have to be 21. Like, for example, I think you can be like a hostess at a party and at a restaurant at a younger age, but you can't be a waiter until you're 21. But you can serve alcohol from 18 to 21 if you're in a position that you have to serve alcohol. If I'm mistaken, right?
I don't know. For me, you would have to be 21 no matter what from the movies.
Well, like our friend who we were with last night, right? We were showing him the studio and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He serves beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not 21. Right?
Yeah, he's 19.
Yeah. So there's jobs you can get that you don't really think about. I can do this job, right? Most likely if you go get hired at a bar or something, you're going to be working as a bar back and having to bring the ice and bring the bottles of beer or whatever. Not actually working directly with the customers, but that's how you start, right? You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And minimal skills. But we'll talk more about this later when we talk about your first job and your first job experience in your interview and all that. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what, let's get to the burning question and let's talk about what we're thinking here. The fate of your GPA is here, but your GPA isn't the only thing on the line. Employers are looking for evidence of character, okay, not just the classes you've passed. What do you think is the most valuable part of a resume for a recent graduate with limited experience? All right, so here are the options. GPA and academic awards, a detailed list of all your jobs, transferable skills gained from all experiences, or summary at the top of the resume. What do you think it is, Connor?
I think it's the transferable skills gained from experiences.
That's right. That is correct. Okay, what does that mean? While academic awards are nice and good grades are great, they don't tell a boss if you solve a problem. All right? A list of jobs is just a history. That's all it is. And even though that's something nice to have to show you have a history, it doesn't show you any skills. But those transferable skills are the future. It's about showing how you can, how your time in a position or how your time as a student or whatever the case may be, any part-time gigs, are the bottom line, right? We get to see what skills you can have and that you've actually applied them in the real world, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's very important because we got to understand that as we're looking for jobs, I could have straight A's, but and this goes into the application also for the college. Everyone has straight A's. Everyone's in the NHS. Everyone's in student government. Everyone is in Stuco. You know,
Yeah.
what are you doing that's different? You know what I mean? That's something you got to do to stand out. Now, obviously, you want to compete with all those people that are A students and all that stuff. You have to be at that level of grades too, right?
Yeah.
Like one of my students at the school I'm at, he's in the NHS and he's the valedictorian. He's the top student in the class. And we're talking and he goes, yeah, I think I'm going to go to UT Austin. He's I don't know yet. And I said, well, you know, you have your choice of any school in Texas. You're accepted automatically based on being the valedictorian.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah. And that's what makes it hard because there's so many different places to go.
Mm.
And I said, well, do they offer the program you want? And he says, well, like, I want to go to UT. I've always wanted to be a Longhorn, but they don't have the program I want.
Well, what does he want to do? What's his major?
I don't remember exactly.
Oh.
Okay. But the point I'm making is he's been wanting to go to UT Austin forever, but they don't have the program he wanted. Same thing with me when I got out of the Army. I was going to go for my master's degree and I was going to try to go to UT and they didn't have the program I wanted either. And then I had social work. I didn't want to do social work, which I regret now. If I could have done something different in my life, I probably would have gone social work instead of the master's program I took.
Really?
Yeah. Because at the same level I'm at now, an LMSW licensed master of social work can get hired by the government. You see someone with a counseling degree, you might give them a job. But a social worker is trained to deal with society and interlink different services and everything. A counselor is just there to help a person with a problem. That's how they see it. Then you have me, who has an education master's degree that doesn't apply to either one of those.
Yeah.
But it's a counseling psychology degree.
Oh.
And for a while there, I was the only one at community college in El Paso that had that degree and was teaching psychology. So, you know, if you can there's ways to do things, but you know, there's some better ways than others, right?
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I tell people it's so important to understand what you want to do in life and plan ahead a little bit. You know, you can't really plan too much because, you know, like for example, you're having your first year in college. Maybe at the end of this year, you're going to want to change your degree program. Who knows, right? But you have to experience life to know what you want to do. You know, so as we talk about this, think about the fact that you don't have to have a history of jobs. You don't have to have straight A's. You just need to have some skills. And the way you get skills is you put yourself out there and you learn to do different things. You know. I'll tell you what. Let's talk about today's hot take and see what we got to say about that today. Ignorance is not an excuse for a blank page. Value is hidden in the struggle you usually try to hide. You know, people don't want to talk about their life too much, right? But that's what gives you the skills to succeed in life, is our life. And today's hot take is the most important experience on your resume is often the one you hate talking about because it taught you the most valuable real world skills, right? You know, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about resilience and how we bounce back from problems, right? Those skills that you learn when you have a problem teach you to be a different person. They give you the skills to handle problems, right? So one of those things that I hate is when they ask me a question in a job interview, what's the most difficult thing you've ever overcome? You know, it's like, wow, that's a lot in my life. You know, we have so many things that have happened to me, right? I'm a disabled combat veteran from the military. I started doing counseling when I was 19 years old. I've been in combat. I've been in the military. I got out. I was a counselor, college professor. I've had a father who was murdered, right? I have LGBT issues in my family. I have a wife who passed away from breast cancer. I've lost my job. I've had my house foreclosed on. I've had my cars repossessed. Most people only experience one of those things in your life. right?
Yeah. I don't think I've met anyone that's had as much trouble as you had.
Yeah, Murphy's Law really does apply to me, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
But it's funny. The one story that comes to my mind when they ask me, tell me about the most difficult situation you've ever overcome. There's one that stands out more than anything. Was I was counseling a soldier in the Army, and he came in and he had plans to kill his first sergeant. And you say, okay, let me ask you this question. You say you have a plan. What's the plan? He goes, well, I'm going to shoot him. Okay, do you have any access to guns? And he pulls his gun out in my office. He goes, yeah, I'm going to use this gun. I'm like, is that whatever? Like, I pretend I didn't know anything about guns. And is that like a 357 Magnum, And he goes, no, I forgot what it was, 9mm. I'm like, oh man. I said, I've never fired a pistol, And in the Army, I've shot rifles and stuff, right? Even an anti-tank weapon, but never shot a pistol. It's mostly for officers. And he goes, you want to hold? I'm like, do you mind taking the bullets out? Because I don't want to do anything stupid. The minute he took the bullets out, I said, this guy up front would really, he loves guns. I think he'd like to see this. Are you okay with me letting him know? Yeah. So I'm holding the gun, and now it's completely, magazines out, chambers open, right, and safe and everything. And I call my boss up, or the guy in the front. I'm like, hey, Rob. I call him by his first name, not Sergeant. First clue, something's wrong. Hey, can you get someone to cover the desk for you? I would love for you to come to my office. What's going on? And I said, you like guns, right? Yeah, you got to come see what I got here in my office. I let him know there's a gun in my office, right? He goes, okay, let me see if I can get someone to cover. So I hang up and I just keep going conversation with this guy, right? As a counselor. A couple minutes passed, knock on the door. I opened it and I walked out of my office. Why? Because there was 2 MPs there ready to arrest the guy.
Oh, wow.
And when people say that's not a difficult situation, I was 19, dude, maybe 20 years old when that happened. And I had the presence of mind of how to disarm them and warn other people and get help at such a young age. So when someone says, give me a difficult situation you've overcome, that's one that pops into my head. In a job interview, that's not really an appropriate story, is it?
No.
But am I supposed to say, oh, well, maybe my wife's death from breast cancer or my father being murdered or, God, pick one. But that's the one I come up with, is that thing with the gun. As stupid as it sounds, to me, was probably the most difficult thing I've ever had to overcome.
Oh, wow.
Aside from, like getting divorced, losing house, all that stuff. That's all been stuff. But when I think of a hard situation that I cannot believe I overcame it the way I did. Just handled it so perfectly. That's the situation I think of, And I think that's a great segue into our break where we can talk about the veteran suicide awareness. And I want you guys to watch this video and we'll talk when we come back.
It's time for a break. Hot Takes with the Murph Man will return after these messages.
The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
According to the VA's suicide data report, an average of 22 veterans die by suicide every single day. This figure is a sobering reality and a crisis that demands our immediate attention and compassion. We must recognize and address the fact that every 24 hours, 22 veterans are losing their lives to suicide. The war doesn't always end when our veterans come home. The invisible wounds they carry, wounds that are real and heavy, require continuous support. No veteran should have to carry this burden alone. Many veterans experience stress and disconnection as they navigate life after service. But there is hope, there is help, and you are not alone in this fight. There's a vibrant community ready to support you, offering friendship, understanding, and shared experiences. You served your country, now let us serve you. Don't fight the toughest battle in silence. Your mission now is to reach out. Dial 988, then press 1. Text them at 838255. The Veterans Crisis Line is available 24/7. Every day, we save lives. Your life is invaluable, and your service is honored. Let's work together to make 22-0 again. No veteran should face their struggles alone. Together, we can ensure every veteran finds the support and hope they deserve.
He gets help, but he still feels off. Sees an ad on the TV about a dog batting said, "This is a man's best friend." Whoa, so he goes one day and he picks it up. Never thought a dog could bring so much love and put a smile on his face. But he's finally found a saving grace. He needs help, but he don't know the path to take or the way to go to be free. Put his mind at ease. We will help, 'cause we can't stand to see a soldier go to God by their own hands. We will do everything we can to make 22-0 again.
All right. Before we get back to the show, I want to pause for something that is important to me. I think this is something that needs to be talked about more. And sometimes I get strikes on me and say that I talk about this, and so I'm trying not to use certain words. But Ryan Spencer has a song called "Make 22-0 Again," and it refers to the 22 veterans who take their lives every day, and to make them zero again, meaning they don't do that anymore. And his song is a very touching song, isn't it? Like I said, Ryan Spencer, "Make 22-0 Again." But if you are having thoughts of hurting yourself, dial 988, press 1, and someone's there to talk to you 24/7, 365. All the time. Okay? There's no reason for you to do a permanent solution to a temporary situation. All right? Let's make 22-0 again. Let's get back to the show. And let's talk about some of those terms we're going to be discussing today in our segment called Laying Down the Coals. Here are the terms we're going to be talking about today. Transferable skills are the abilities like communication and teamwork that apply across every single industry. Communication and teamwork, guess what? Football, sports, right? You don't even think about clubs. All right. The actual resume itself, a one-page marketing document designed to sell your potential and not just your past. And of course, the action verbs, the strong, specific words that led or created or analyzed that give you your achievement's teeth. Transferable skills. So we've been talking about this already, right? What do you think is different about that resume that it says that one page, right? One page. Why don't you want a 10-page resume if you've had a lot of experience?
Because not everything you did is important.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. I was thinking there's some stuff that you've done that doesn't matter to the job you're applying for,
which is not important in that manner. Yeah.
So when you said it, I'm like, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, but like, damn, but like, yeah,
right. So, and the other thing is, I'm not going to want to read a 10-page resume, right?
Oh yeah, no.
So
nobody even reads the first page; they just skim through it.
You're right.
So I mean,
there's a thing called a curriculum vitae for when you get professional and you want to have like all the things you've ever done. Mine's probably about 8 pages long, going on 9. Now with everything, I haven't even added the podcast and the animation and the radio station, nothing, imagine how long my resume is going to be now. Probably about 10 or 12 pages.
Dang.
Because I've done so much, right?
Yeah.
And you should always have them updated. Let me point that out real quick. You should always have that updated, right? And those action verbs, you want to use stuff that you've done, like I led, I created, I analyzed, not I was able to analyze. No, just that word. Boom. Do you know how most resumes are read nowadays, Connor?
Nope.
They're scanned through a computer.
Oh.
Because you upload them onto a document, right? The system scans your resume, and if it has certain keywords in it that they're looking for, it gets pushed forward to go to the HR department or whoever the hiring manager is or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And I'll give you an example of this. I was a counselor at the runaway shelter. I was had experience as a caseworker with mental health and mental retardation services. I've been in a day treatment program. I've done everything, right? I applied for a job as a social worker in Fort Bliss. Again, we talked about you need to have a social work degree, so I didn't. And I didn't get called for an interview. And I'm like, well, I'm the president of the counseling association. I didn't even get an interview. I said, okay, let me call them up. So I call HR up. And the person I spoke to says, oh, yes, I remember your resume specifically. Really? I said, okay, can you give me some feedback? Do you mind? She's like, no, I'd love to. She says, okay, here it says you're a college professor and you teach psychology classes. What does that mean? I'm like, I'm a college professor. I teach psychology at the college level. What more? Like, what?
Like, what else do you want me to say? It technically says it.
Yeah, and then and she says, okay, I can see that. But here it says you're certified in preventing and managing aggressive behavior. What does that mean? I am certified to prevent and manage aggressive behaviors. That's called PMAB. I don't know what it's called nowadays, right? Mm-hmm. But it's how to handle when clients are violent, how to take them down, or how to defend yourself, or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. If they're attacking someone else, how to stop, preventing and managing. And I said, you know what? You're an idiot. I said, you have no idea the candidate that you just ignored. I can tell you right now, there's probably no one. I would venture to say I'm one of the best candidates that's in El Paso right now for this job, if not the best. And I know that because I'm the president of the Counseling Association. I know counselors. I know social workers. I know everybody. And they have jobs. They're counselors. I'm one of the ones who are still trying to make their way up. Mm. And I said, and you screwed up. And I said, thank you for your time. And I hung up. Never applied for another job in Fort Bliss ever again.
Wow.
Yeah. And nowadays, it's all done through computers. So if you don't have, like, for example, if the job is asking for, I am looking for a executive producer experience, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't have the word of experience as executive producer, you're not going to get picked up, period. Because that's what the job is asking for, right? If it's asking for a master's degree in something, you better have that master's degree on your resume, right? Mm-hmm. Those words are so important. And the reason I tell you need to have a one-page resume, Connor, is because you need to be able to change it for every job. There's certain skills that if you're trying to get a job as a teacher, obviously these are my teaching skills.
Yeah.
But they may want a certain experience in, oh my God, I forgot what it was called. PBIS. Okay. And you do PBIS. Yeah, I'm certified in PBIS. Okay, good. You got to have those 4 letters in there. Right. So it's one of those things that 4 little letters, if they're not on your resume and they're in the job description, you're not going to get forwarded. Mm. Okay. So you tailor your resume to every position you apply for, with the majority is the same, but there's a few things you have to add. If they're looking for leadership, well, God, I've never been a supervisor. Okay, but have I ever led a group? Have I ever led a project? Have I ever led whatever? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not always about the job. It's about those transferable skills and your resume and those action verbs. Okay. So let's get more into this and let's talk about Jesus. I'm sorry. Put the time down. All right. So aside from hearing our stories, I think the best way to talk about things is to hear about someone else. So let's hear about Jesse in today's story from the fire. Meet Jesse, who thought his volunteer work and club leadership didn't count as real experience. Listen to how he stopped apologizing for his background and started owning the results. See how one well-built resume turned nothing to show into a paid internship. Think about that. All right. He'd let his experience guide him to get an internship somewhere. And as you get that internship, then you led to a job, led to his career. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. When does your degree matter most?
When you get your first job.
Right. Very good. Because you get in the door in that first job, right?
Mm-hmm. Then just from experience from there.
Exactly. Because now it's just a checkbox. Yeah, I have my degree, but now I have the experience to go with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Add on to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you have volunteer experience, if you have school club experience, whatever the case may be, you're able to sit there and put your skills on a piece of paper where people can read it and be like, oh, I want to hire this guy for my position because I think he would be great for my team. And I know you never had this experience, Connor, but when you have an employee that applies to a job, the boss will sometimes give the resume to everybody without the name of the person and say, just look at their skills and tell me which one stands out to you guys the most. And you read them, and everyone sounds like a god, right? Because it's perfect written and everything, right? This is going to be a little TMI from my experience in my lifetime, but I was like, oh, he works at a porno shop. And my boss goes, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, he has a job right now at this company. And the only reason I know that company was because that's the name that pops up on my credit card receipts.
Oh.
So I was like, Now, she didn't know what that was. No one else at the table knew what that was. I knew what it was.
Because you shop there.
Yeah. Oh, I have shopped. Not that I shop there on a regular basis. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I walk in, they're like, hey, Murphman.
Hey, long time no see. I haven't seen you since yesterday.
Layaway. You don't know what layaway is. You're too young for that. They don't have it anymore. Layaway used to be able to go to Walmart or Kmart or any store and have all your furniture and all your stuff, and you put it in, and you'd be able to make payments in 2 months. You get it out, and yeah, so before credit and whatever. But anyway,
yeah, I'm too young for that.
So I'm reading this. Well, it's from my days, right?
Yeah.
So speaking of that,
what?
Just credit. You just got approved for something, didn't you? How much did you get approved for?
What are you talking about?
You applied for something and you got approved for how much?
Oh, $5,000.
Good job. 19 years old. That's pretty good, dude. I'm gonna tell you, I'm impressed with that.
Is that? I mean, I don't know on what it would usually be.
All right, hold on. Let me finish the story about the porn shop.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And then we'll talk about you.
Okay.
Anyway, so I'm looking at this, and my boss goes, I don't want him working here. And I said, why? Well, I don't want someone that works in a porn shop. I'm like, wow, that's really a stereotype. He might be working his way through college, and that's the job he had. Maybe his parents owned the store, and that's why he worked there. We don't know what's beyond this piece of paper. And that's why it's important. You don't have to list every job. Right?
Yeah.
If you're going for a professional position, you don't want to list that you worked at a porn shop. Right? Can we agree on that one?
Yeah.
Unless you're the manager, right? Or,
And it's still the same porn shop.
It is, but now you're in a leadership position and you manage the inventory. Millions of dollars sometimes. Or hundreds of thousands, maybe not millions. Depends on what store you're going to, right? And how much you sell.
Yeah.
Right?
Either its own store or it's in the mall.
Well, Spencer said that stuff, right? So now it's everywhere. Before it was all secret, and you don't tell people. Yeah,
and now it's just go there.
Yeah, exactly. It's much more respectable now than it used to be. But anyway, So careful what you put on the resume, because that piece of paper is what they're judging you on. And those skills are what they're going to judge you on. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to put something like a porno shop, you better have a relative to what you're trying to do. I've counseled people with sexual addiction problems. Whatever. I mean, I doubt you do that at a porn shop. You get my point, though, right?
Yeah.
You know, try, if you're going to put it on there, make sure it links into the job you're going. Now, I'm going to take a little break, not a break from commercial, but let me go back to the credit. Okay. There's credit scores. I don't know what your credit score is per se, right? But
I don't know either. Probably bad since I spent all my money on food.
That's not what those credit scores. Credit score is the likelihood of you having credit and spending it wisely. Okay, hold on. And making payments on time and showing you can manage your budget. You're not using it too much, not using it too little, you know, that kind of stuff. And when you build enough credit, you get to a point where your credit's so good, it doesn't matter what your income is. In a lot of times, they just give you the loan because you're that credit worthy, is what it's called. You put my income down as a household income, right? And you got approved for $5,000. You didn't think about that, did you?
No, but I didn't put your house income.
Oh, that's right. Okay, oh, I remember. I sent you the income, and you're like, "I didn't need it."
Yeah, I didn't need it. I need it.
Your credit score got you the credit.
I get.
So
I don't know how. I don't know how, but yeah, Social Security number is all they asked. Technically, that's it.
Right.
And home address. That's it.
Right. And what they do is they pull your credit from a credit report bureau like Experian, TransUnion, or Experian, TransUnion,
and etc.
No, there's a third one. I can't believe I can't remember it. Anyway,
I don't know.
And your credit, your Social Security number, and they say, okay, he's still at this address that we have in the system, right? And they say, let's give him the credit because you already have a history at 19 years old. How come you have a history? Because I put you on my credit. And how many cards do you have with your name on it? I'm just curious if you even know.
5.
Exactly 5, yes.
Yeah.
Now you have this one 6 that doesn't have me on it.
Which one?
The one the 5,000 you just got approved for.
Oh. Well, you're talking about like its own card itself?
Yeah.
That's not an own card. It's just credit.
But if you needed to go and use the $5,000, you have it if you need to.
Well, on that specific thing.
Yeah, but again,
that it's not 5,000 to spend. Like,
you can't
just
go
so
spend it
people
everywhere.
know. Yeah, it's not 5,000 I got to spend. It's just
you know, they don't need the details. But the point being is, yeah, it's not like a credit card. I get that, but you got approved for that much credit.
Yeah,
you could have probably been approved for 200. You know, if at least maybe 1,000, just to get what you need at that moment. But no, you got 5,000. So, good job.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to the show, and let's talk about the heat map. And what is the heat map? Well, these are the actionable steps you can take to help you build your resume. So let's talk about those real quick. The experience audit. List every club, project, and part-time job you've ever had. Every one of them has value. Well, we just talked about that. Maybe not everyone, right?
Yeah.
But if you really have no experience, no jobs, you want to put down what you've done. So the more you put on there is better. Outcome orientation. Use bullet points that focus on results, not just the tasks, and tell them what you achieved. That's very important, Connor. If I tell you I managed a team of 10 employees, ooh, okay, right?
I mean, that's a handful.
Right. But with those 10 employees, I managed $1 million budget and ran a company for 3 years with a profit every quarter. Do you see how that builds on it? Right.
Yeah.
So you want to show what your skills are, not just what they are, but what they've accomplished if you can. Right.
Okay.
I can sit here and tell you I've saved, I've seen 300 families a year for 20 years. So that's 6,000 families I've helped.
Dang.
So do you see how that works? Now, if I were to show you my military awards, I laugh because in the military they make you sound like a god. It says provide security for the U.S. Embassy in Somalia, in Mogadishu. I was a security. And I did guard, but they make it sound like it's a lot more. And there are people. I mean, there are awards you get that you have to have the real stuff,
Yeah.
But they put these skills on there to make it sound good. All right. Strategic tailoring. Stop sending generic resumes. Customize your skills to match the specific job description. And the gap fill protocol. Right. Build an accomplishment log. A brag file to document every win as it happens. We talked about this last week, remember?
Yeah.
You want to be able to brag about yourself. You want to say, these are the things I've done. And that's where people have a hard time because we don't really talk about the good stuff. We don't brag. We try to be humble, But when you're looking for a job, sometimes bragging is what you need. And sometimes bragging can go against you. And I'll give you an example of that. When I applied for a job at MHMR, in the job interview, because it counts psychology. I was in the Army. I'm an amazing counselor, therapist, psychology professor, whatever, right? I know psychology like the back of my hand. I've been doing it since I was 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a job interview and they're asking me questions. I'm answering all cocky because, whatever. And my boss who ended up hiring me tells me, in your job interview, you pissed off a lot of people. And he says, one person's like, he is our best candidate, but I don't know if I can handle him because I'm a big personality.
Yeah, that's.
And he says, give him to me. I will use him. He took me on his team. I worked there for 8 months before I moved on to a job with a supervisor position. But myself, Thelma and Candy, Thelma and I started together at the same time. And Candy had been there for years. We were the top 3 producers in the company. Okay. It was literally the 3 of us were the best employees in the entire company, billing the most hours and everything.
Wow.
And that's what he wanted. You know what I mean? Because we had to do a lot of stuff. So when you think about your skills and you brag in your accomplishment log, when people ask you stories like, what's the difficult situation you've overcome? Have a job example that's related to the job. Like, hey, I had 3 employees out with COVID and I had to manage, a company without losing any shipping, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make it sound like work-related stuff. All right. It's very important to do that. Okay. What are you doing?
Oh, writing notes.
What note are you writing?
Of the stories. I was going to ask you questions after.
Go ahead.
Thumb and Candy?
Thelma.
Oh, Thelma and Candy?
And Candy was her name, yeah.
I heard Thumb and Candy. I'm like, did you guys just nicknames? I was like, Thumb and Candy? And they put you all on one team? They didn't try to separate you guys?
No, let me tell you. Candy had her own thing, okay?
Yeah.
Thelma and I, we worked together and we used to do things together as a team because we had to go out into some dangerous areas and go meet our clients out in the community. Our consumers is what they were called. There was one guy who would attack us, right? Literally, he would attack you. And he was as big as I was.
Ew.
And Thelma was probably, like 4'10", tiny. And she couldn't go there by herself because he would attack her, So I had to go and sort of keep him calm, But her and I were a really, really good team. And I really enjoyed working with her. And we went out as a team and she'd have her, we'd go to an apartment complex and she'd have her 5 clients, I'd have my 5 clients, and then we'd be done and we'd get together and we'd go to the next building. You know what I mean? So we worked together that way. There was times where she did her own thing, I did my own thing. It's not like we were together the entire time, but
yeah.
But we were so close in our numbers because we did everything together,
So not that you guys were the highest highest people, and they just put you on the team. You guys actually had chemistry together. And they just kept you. Okay. But I thought it was
But we were the highest producing people in the team, in the entire company. We had the most.
I was thinking hours. 3 of you guys, all of you were independent, and then based on your sales or numbers and all that, they put you together as a team?
Well, actually, because we started together, and this is where my boss was like, okay, Murph, I'm going to put you with Thelma. You have experience in counseling, and I think you'll be able to help her get started. And then we just ended up working together. But like, how many hours are in a month, right? 4 weeks, 40 hours, 160 hours, right? We were producing client contacts of 110 hours a month.
Dang.
So that meant the majority of our time was dealing with clients. Those people that were turning in 50. What were we doing the other 110 hours of the month? And so the point being that accomplishment log, you want to put down stuff that you've done. You want to have quantitative stuff. You want to have numbers and stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any other questions besides Thumb and Ken?
No. I just thought separate and then together.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, aren't there other teams also that do your job, or was it just the three of you?
No, we had it by areas.
Oh, okay.
But that's the thing. She'd go out with me, and we covered 2 areas together. You know what I mean?
So you guys were different areas working together,
like Central and Northeast.
Okay.
Right. So we worked that together, and then she'd go to Northeast and have my clients there, and then she'd have her clients, and I'd go see some in her neighborhood, and we worked together as a team. Really, it was great.
That's good.
And she even came on board with me at the runaway shelter later, and she was there then she eventually became a nurse, and she's an amazing nurse now, but let's take a break. And when we come back, let's talk about those pitfalls that you'll fall into when you cannot do what we need to do.
It's time for a break. Hot Takes with the Murph Man will return after these messages.
The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for supporting our channel by watching and listening.
Find us on the web at mbradio.net.
Staring out this hotel window, many floors above. What's missing down there is love. Thinking through the smoke that fills my mind. Don't worry, it's not my first time. Adios, amigo. I'm so glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town. They say it's all inside, heaven and hell. What happened to that angel when he fell? Give it just one try. Tell me you don't like it. Be God for a moment and don't despise it. Adios, amigo. I'm so glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town. Step outside and breathe. Play a little in the street. hope it's not me they're sending. Move one from over there, get the kids a little scared. Oh, these fences, they need mending. Adios, amigo. I'm so glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town. Adios, amigo. So glad I seen you. I won't be seeing you around. Adios, amigo. I've been looking for you since I stepped foot in this town.
Before we get back to the show, Hot Takes with the Murph Man streams live every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern with Military Broadcast Radio. At mbradio.us, we give veterans a voice and help them launch their own podcasts. Make sure to visit purehottakes.com for all my socials and links to our premium content. Welcome back, you guys. So, you have the heat mapping, you have those steps, we have the definitions we've talked about. But what are some pitfalls to this? What are some places you're going to step and maybe stumble a little bit? Let's talk about those in our segment where you're going to get burned. This just a job trap. Thinking your fast food or retail experience is worthless. It's actually a masterclass in people skills. I'm going to tell you right now, I have 3 or 4 jobs that I've had that I've never even put on my resume. I had one for 1.5 weeks before I quit.
Why'd you quit?
Because my boss was stupid.
Oh.
Actually.
And you figured that out after a week and a half?
No, I figured it out the first day. Because the first day, get this, the first day I'm supposed to start, I got subpoenaed to go to court and testify.
Ugh.
So what am I supposed to do? Ignore the subpoena?
Yeah.
And she's like, how often is this going to happen? I said, I don't know. Whenever I have to go to court on a previous case, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to and literally my first day of work, I missed it because I was in court. And then she just didn't like me for whatever reason. And she made my life hard. And she told me to go home on a Friday and consider if I want to work for her or not. I came back in on Monday. Oh, no, sorry. On Thursday, she told me to go home. And then I came in on Friday and said, okay, I'm going to do what I need to work for you. And then on Monday, I quit because I found a job over the weekend. But, I had to do what I had to keep my job, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, had another job where I worked at Taco Bell for 3 months.
Okay.
And
I mean, you could use that also.
Do you know why I stopped working at Taco Bell?
What, the food was boring?
No. Because I would close and the manager would buy us beer and we would close and we'd be listening to music, we'd be eating the food, we'd be closing and drinking beers while we're just hanging out. We'd clock out, right? We weren't even on the clock because we just stayed there partying.
Yeah.
And one day the owner drove by and caught us.
Oh.
Fired him, and I was underage. So I he could have called the cops or whatever, right? And I just said, I'll just quit. Okay. I'll just quit. And yeah, so it was just the second job that I had that I didn't say. I had a job working at the arcade when I was 14 years old. That's not on my resume anywhere. Safety Town is the only one I don't talk about.
Oh, Safety Town.
You know why I used to go to Safety Town and volunteer my time there? Because my brothers would go to Safety Town right? And for those of you who don't know what Safety Town is, it's literally a small town where they teach you how to use they teach you road safety skills by having a tricycle, and you ride around, and you have pedestrians, and you have street signs, and you learn how to be in the street and learn stranger danger and all that stuff. And so I took my brothers, and there were some really pretty girls there. So I was like, hey, y'all need some help? And yeah, and that's how I became a Girl Scout troop leader. And
Oh,
yeah, stuff that I'm telling you, there's jobs that I've had that I've never even put on a resume because, like it says, it's just a job trap, right?
yeah.
All those are relevant, and but I don't need that job to get the job I'm trying to get. You know what I mean? I'm working on counseling. None of those jobs apply, so I don't need to put them on there. Also, vague language, using weak phrases like responsible, or instead of high impact action verbs like managed, right? That's different than responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
And then one size fits all. Sending the same resume everywhere proves to be the employee you didn't do your homework. When you have a resume and you change it for every job, you also got to pay attention to detail, right? Because I went for a job one time, and the guy goes, "So, how are you with attention to detail?" I said, "I'm pretty good at attention to detail," and he says, "Because you applied for a position at whatever, you never changed the school."
Oh God.
And I just said, yeah, so I screwed up. I said, I'm human. And I had a little attitude because I knew at that point I'm not going to get the job.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I screwed up. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that. I said, I'm not going to lie. I screwed up. I mean, it's obvious, right? Everyone sees the resume. I said, if you look at the resume I have here that I actually handed out, has the correct information. The job application you're looking at is the one that I uploaded online. And obviously, once it was submitted, I couldn't change it. So then he looked at the others and he goes, yeah, you're right. But no, I didn't get the job. But I did find out later that they were fighting over hiring me or someone else, and the one who got the job had a PhD. So a little better than me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe just a little bit.
So yeah, I can tell you, I've had really, really good experience in interviews, and I've always lost out to someone that's better than me
in some way. Yeah.
But I'm saying for stupid reasons.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's some like in any way,
like
anything's possible.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so you want to keep all that and just be aware of it. Okay. Those are the pitfalls you're going to have. And now let's talk about those things we can do to help prevent you falling for those traps in our segment called the heat shields. All right. So we've talked about that accomplishment log, keeping a running document of everything you've ever done. That helps you prevent, putting stuff that doesn't matter on your resume. The peer review. Never hit send without a second pair of eyes to catch the typos that kill your credibility. What did I just talk about? If I would have had someone looking over my resume, they would have said, yeah, you don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
And the imposter shield. Use quantifiable data to remind yourself that your skills are real and earned. You're not just saying that you did stuff. You're actually giving evidence such as numbers and examples and things of that nature. All right. As you're looking at a resume, remember that because you want to be able to say, this is what I do. Right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that real quick, Connor. All right. With the heat shields, we push pause. Skills in hand and those tools. Let's think about what we've learned today and ask ourselves questions. And we call that a segment called the afterburn. All right. So your integrity is your currency, and make sure your resume is worth the investment. What do they mean by that is if you're going to apply for a job, make sure you put the effort into that resume. Okay. So ask yourself this: what experiences have helped me grow the most in the last year? What is one specific skill I have that would make the company better today? And who can I ask to review my resume and give honest feedback? Those are the 3 terms we're talking about right now. Those 3 questions, I should say, not 3 terms. Those are the 3 questions we're talking about right now. So let's go over each one real quick, okay, Connor?
Mm-hmm.
What experiences have helped you grow the most in the last year?
Networking with friends, getting to meet new people. That's honestly what I've been doing this past like whole school year. So
you've become more social.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit more, not as much, but I have friends, you know.
Well, you're doing a lot of stuff now that you haven't done, like going to the clubs and stuff like that, right?
I mean, yeah.
What about skills you've learned? And I want you to think about this for a second. Let's see if you get what I'm thinking of.
I don't think I am, but skills. I don't know if it counts as a skill. I don't think it does. But actually, I don't even know. I don't think I got any skills this past year. Oh, sorry. This is not a skill.
What do you mean it's not a skill?
Like making the studio?
No.
Or
I'm talking about
the studio.
The podcast.
Oh. Well, it's not a skill. It's a hobby. Not a skill.
No. The skills you've learned. Editing. Executive producer.
Well, producing, I guess.
Yeah, producing, not editing.
I mean,
producing.
Yeah, but I wouldn't count that as a skill I've learned.
Talking more professionally.
Talking more, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You also have helped me with my animations. You've had input on the scripts that we've written because I talked to you about them.
Yeah.
Right.
So just me talking more than I did before.
Yeah.
I was like.
Yeah, but you've learned how to
talk.
No, be more interactive with things around you.
Yeah.
The world is not just happening around you. You're actually happening in the world.
Yeah, I was not going to get that at all.
You know, I was talking to Tony P, the executive producer of Stream915.com yesterday. And it was yesterday, right? I did my show last night. Yeah.
Yeah, Wednesday.
And I was telling him, I'm like, you know, every month and a half, I've had something new happen. So think about this. June 9th is when I decided to do a podcast, right? In July, I applied for Stream 915, and then I got with Military Broadcast Radio. August 4th was our first podcast. September was our first thing we did with Stream915.com. In that time, I started working with the animations for Military Broadcast Radio.
Mm-hmm.
And then in October, I started doing the remotes with Stream915.com.
I thought it was like, oh, yeah, October, November. Yeah.
Through December, right? And then the animations with Military Broadcast Radio, you know, doing our podcast, so on and so forth. And then I said, okay, now let's put all this together and let's start my business called Borderland Strategies. Let's start the consulting firm. You remember we talked about that?
Mm-hmm.
And you were a big part of helping with that one. And then Tony comes out and says, we're going to have a studio at the mall.
I was like, oh, okay.
And I was like, I just spent a couple $1,000 for equipment for my studio at the house. Like, couldn't you tell it's 2 hours before? I mean, 2 weeks before.
Yeah. I mean, at least thank God we kept it here at the house.
Yeah.
Because the studio was small.
Well, yeah.
It is small, yeah.
It's not what we want to do and where we want to go. The projection we've come up with, right? And another thing, I used to tell you, here's my dream. And you're like, that's stupid. It's not going to happen. 37 episodes in, Connor. You never thought it would go this far, right?
No.
Yeah. And get to where we're doing everything, right?
And you have it up till when? 64?
No, 68.
68. Wow.
And I tell people it's because 69 is my favorite number because that's the year I was born.
Yeah.
And I want to do something special because that's going to change the podcast at that point. It's going to be a different kind of podcast because we're not going to be doing this kind of education, the consulting and, you know, all the other stuff we have planned. But now I have my own radio station, my own radio show, I should say. And, you know, like I can't catch a break per se, although it's my friend Carla says, you've done side quests. Everything revolves around the podcast, but it's all side quests. And I like that phrase, right? So when you ask yourself, what have you learned? You don't even realize that the stuff we've done here has grown. I've done more than you, and I get that. But you've done a lot here.
More than I thought I would, yeah.
Yeah, a lot more, right? So, a lot more than you thought you would have done. So, give yourself some credit there. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Another one. What is one specific skill? Hold on, I can't talk. That is my Mexican side coming out. What is one specific skill I have that would make the company better today? So when you go for a job interview, they'll ask you a question like, so what do you see yourself doing in our company? Or where do you see yourself in 5 years? Right? At my wife's company, not my wife's, but my first wife's company, she was in a job interview, and they asked the guy, the director says, so where do you see yourself in 5 years? And he goes, doing your job.
Ooh. Did they like that answer or no?
No. Not everyone can handle cocky, right?
Mm.
You want someone that's a go-getter, right? But you don't know what they'll do to get there.
Mm.
But anyway, what's the skill that you do that will make you better? And in everything that I do, I say I'm flexible and I can fill in when needed. That's how I got this job that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
I literally am like the most flexible person ever. I can do whatever they need me to do whenever they need me to do it. But when she asked me, she says, how do you see yourself doing this? And I said, oh, well, my friend has the position I'm working for. We're going to be working together. So I know what he does, right? But I said, I'm flexible. And I have general skills in teaching.
Yeah.
I can teach about psychology, college level stuff, but general teaching skills is what I have. I'm not great at English. I'm not great at math. I'm not great at science. But in the job I have now, I cover calculus. I cover environmental sciences. I cover Spanish.
Astronomy.
Yeah.
You cover some stuff I didn't even know you could.
Well, it's not my knowledge. It's I have to teach what the teacher's teaching.
Yeah. I
didn't have to develop the plan.
But I mean, at least you could, learn it technically. Whatever the plan is, you learn something about it.
Well, let me tell you, I'm not good at math. I tell you, with math has letters, forget it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
But when we're doing like math models or something, right? My coworker and I were talking, and we share the same room online, and a student will come in, and I start teaching them, and I've learned how to teach certain things because we've covered certain classes more than once. But this one time, the student came in, we were covering a class for calculus, and I told the kids, look, I'm going to tell you the truth. I have zero idea what this class is about. I said, but give me a second. Let me get the notes. Let me look at them real quick. And then my coworker, he's taken some advanced math classes. So he's like, let me see what I can do. And the kid says, okay, and I said, give me 5 minutes. And, I said, so we just talked about stuff while I'm reading. And so, all right, here we go. You ready? I said, here's the question you have, right? Yeah. So let me see if I understand the question to make sure I understand where we're going with this. And then I started explaining the question that she had. And I said, how about this, and then you have to do this, and then you have to. And she goes, I get it now. She says, hold on. And she starts doing the math problem. And I had the answer in front of me, right? Yeah. And she worked it out. And she goes, is this the answer? I said, yes, it is. She says, great. And I said, you want to do one more? Yeah. So we did one more. She's like, thank you very much. I really appreciate you helping me with this. So you're welcome. She leaves the room. And my coworker's like, how the hell did you do that? I said, I read the notes, dude. That's all I did. But I have an ability to teach. So it doesn't matter what I'm teaching. It's I have the skills to teach.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people. That's where the flexibility comes in. I may not have the specific skill or knowledge, but I have the skills to teach.
Yeah.
And like test-taking strategies. I've told you about this before, right?
Yes.
There's things you can do to take tests, and whether you know the answers or not. Like, for example, when we're doing the burning question, 2 answers are just stupid. They don't. There's 2 that's close, and you got to pick which one. But that's how most tests are. If you have a general idea what the answer is, you can eliminate 2 questions almost right off the bat. So think about that. Or sometimes there's 3 obvious ones and one's not, You're like, that's got to be the answer because the other 3 don't apply. So there's a little anyway. And then, what who can you ask to review your resume?
Anyone, friends, family.
What I'm saying,
employees.
Who would you ask?
Friends, family, the employers, anyone.
Well, not employers. You want to do your resume before you get to the employers.
Well, then, yeah, friends, family, teachers. I don't know, anyone.
Well, I'll tell you.
Anyone that has job experiences.
I'll tell you what. There's something we have available to us. Not just you and me. Everyone has this available to them. And I want to talk about that in our Digital Inferno after the break. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, we'll be right back.
It's time for a break. Hot Takes with the Murph Man will return after these messages.
The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for supporting our channel by watching and listening.
Find us on the web at mbradio.net.
It's the guts and it's the glory. 100 stripes, 100 stories. It's the Pledge of Allegiance on the 4th of July. It's them handwritten letters from home. It's them sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's a line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Hey, from the fields of Indiana to the swamps of Louisiana to the golden coast of California, Uncle Sam's the only family he's got. His purple heartbeat won't stop. And his 18th birthday was the day he was born. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's the light. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, stand on the front line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, pay the ultimate price. He was the man of the house when he was born. His family is proud but torn. But if you knew him, you would understand. He was raised on how to be brave, just to see the flag still wave. And then he came home with only one hand. 'Cause Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down here the light. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, stand on these front lines. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, he'll pay the ultimate price. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down in the light. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. March in line, march in line. Hey. Hey.
Before we wrap up, here's a reminder. Hot Takes with the Murph Man streams live every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern with Military Broadcast Radio. At mbradio.us, we give veterans a voice and help them launch their own podcasts. Hot Takes with the Murph Man is partnered with Squad 915 Studios, the place for premium content you won't find in the live podcast or on socials. At stream915.com, we are a local platform made for El Paso with content exclusively created by El Pasoans. Check it out. It is free to create an account. Visit purehottakes.com to connect on socials. All right. So now we get into, like I always say, my favorite segment is the Digital Inferno, where we talk about artificial intelligence. We talk about all tech stuff. This is what I love talking about, right, Connor?
Yeah, this is your stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything is my stuff, but this is why I really like it. The Digital Inferno is that technology that will help you reach these goals. So let's talk about the Digital Inferno. All right, ATS optimization, using digital tools like Jobscan to compare your resume against the job description and see exactly how the robot sees you. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
The plain PDF. Always use ATS-friendly templates. Automatic tracking software, by the way, if you don't know what ATS is. You know, simple formatting, no columns, ensure your skills are actually parsed by the system, meaning you can't have certain fonts, you can't have columns because it only can read across the line. So if you have columns, it's not going to be able to read. Mm-hmm. It's going to put like two columns together that have two different skills.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, digital mirroring. Match your online profiles to your resume so your brand is consistent across the web. And let's talk about that. Okay, Connor?
Mm-hmm.
Digital mirroring. Your brand. You are a brand because you're trying to sell yourself when you get a job, right? Okay. You're young and you've had a job.
Mm-hmm.
When you went to your first job, what did we have to do? We had to do a resume.
Yeah.
But we did something else. Do you remember?
My cover page, cover letter.
The cover letter. That's something we haven't talked about. You're right. I don't think about that. A cover letter is basically a summary of what you're doing. You know.
Yeah.
But there was something else we did.
I don't know. Get an interview?
No. LinkedIn.
Oh.
Why do you want LinkedIn? Because you could put skills on LinkedIn and people are looking for those skills. Do you know how many people have reached out to me because I do podcasts?
No.
There's been a lot.
Top of your head, how many would you say? Just quick.
15 to 20. At least I get 2 a week, almost.
That's not bad.
That's one every 2 weeks, I should say.
That's a good profile visits.
Yeah. Well, no, that's not my profile of visits. I'm talking about people that reach out to me and want to like work with me.
But like that actually talk to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That private message to you.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm not looking for a job in podcasting. Like you said, is this a hobby? I don't know yet, right? But I'm not going to go anywhere else and do this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to go produce someone else's show. I'm not going to go edit someone else's show. You know, you can hire me on a contract basis to do stuff like that, but I'm not going to do this for someone else. You know, as you think about LinkedIn, you put all your skills on there, and it's literally a constant resume that you have to keep updated because people are always looking for the skills on LinkedIn. And if you can tell people, hey, go to my LinkedIn profile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow, yeah. And they go and they can read all your history, and they can see you interacting with other people, how many friends you have, who are your friends. That's also important. You know, I have people like, I work at the college. I'm going to go add Sean. No, you're not. I'll add him. You know what I mean? But like, we're not talking or nothing. Why would you add me? Does that make sense?
Connections. I don't know.
It is connections.
Well, then,
but if you literally go and invite everyone at the position you want to work as, if you want to be an executive producer, type the search executive producer and just go add anyone that has that in their title.
And try to.
And then you start networking.
Yeah.
Right? If you're looking for a counselor, boom, social worker, teacher, psychology, whatever subject, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to have all those friends linked together. That's why it's called LinkedIn. You're linked into a group. And what ends up happening is as your network grows, that algorithm pushes more people towards you. And eventually you'll get that one person that comes across your feed and is like, this is the one I want. This is the person I want.
Mm.
And they'll email you. You know, when I do my show and, you know, we publish all our profiles and everything. It's not the best posting. I get that, you know. But I'll tell you what, it's getting my name out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing other things, and you know, it's getting out there. And hopefully I'm going to finish something next month and I can be good here. That's what I'm hoping to do. We're going to be doing the new studio, right? We're going to be, it's, again, a month and a half, 2 months, every time something changes, right? But on LinkedIn, I announce all this stuff and I say, hey, look at what we're doing now. Hey, look at what I'm doing now. Hey, that's my accomplishment log.
Yeah.
And people respond to me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I've had people reach out to me when I was in the Army, like in 97. So let's see, that's 28 years ago, 30 years ago.
Don't ask me.
Well,
29.
Yeah, somewhere in there, right? Reaching out to me because if I'm on LinkedIn, they're not looking for Sean Murphy, right?
Yeah.
They're not looking for me, but based on the algorithm and people I've added, I've come across their page and like, oh my God, I know that guy. And then they reach out to me.
So, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how you use LinkedIn. You go out there and you try to do everything you possibly can to get your name out there and your skills. If you're looking for a job on LinkedIn, there's a thing that says actively seeking employment.
Yeah.
I've had a boss see that and go, hey, why are you looking for a job? And I said, why not? I said, you're paying me, I'm just going to throw numbers out there, okay? $10,000. If I can get hired at a job that pays me $25,
you're going to take it.
I'm going to take that job. Sorry. You know, I'm going to work hard for you while I'm here, but if someone offers me that job, I'm going to take that job.
Yeah.
You know, I have a friend right now who makes $140,000 a year. She's not happy. And she wants to do another job. Then maybe we'll pay her $90,000 a year.
Oh God.
And she's like, $50,000 less.
I wouldn't take it. I'd keep it.
But the job she's trying to get helps her travel and go around the country.
Man.
Well, that's what she wants. She wants to travel.
Hmm.
And she doesn't have to pay for it. Her food and transportation and housing are all taken care of. Like a traveling nurse.
Well, then I guess.
Right? You know, but you have to ask yourself, like, do you really want to lose that money? And just the exact opposite. Would you want to gain that money? Give up what you got now to go get another job. You have no idea if it's going to be a good one or not. So, you know, I always say I'm looking, whether I am or not, because you never know what's going to come across your table.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if someone were to come over to us and say, okay, I'm going to offer you guys each $100,000 to do a podcast for us. Deuces, right?
Yeah.
Right. College can wait, maybe. Depends on what we got to do at the new job, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, you know, so you never know what's going to be offered to us. So that's why you want to make sure your LinkedIn is always up to date. You want to make sure your resume is always up to date, because like the way I started teaching college, my friend at a meeting on Tuesday tells me, hey, we're looking for teachers at the college. Would you be interested in teaching? I said, I've never thought of teaching. She goes, you really know psychology. You might want to think about it. And she just called this guy. So I call him on Wednesday. He's like, hey, can you come in tomorrow? Yeah. And I had my resume updated. So I didn't have to like panic and work on my resume the night before or anything. And I went in and I did the interview and I got the job. You know?
Nice.
If I get offered a job right now, hey, can you send me your resume? I can't do that, you know, because it's not ready. That doesn't sound professional, right?
No.
And I've had one time in my life, this was really, really cool. Do you know what a headhunter is?
No.
There's companies out there that actually go look for employees. So like if I'm trying to hire someone that's an executive producer, they will go look for someone and say, we would like to interview you for this position. So when someone's looking for you, they're headhunting is what it's called, okay?
I've heard the term before, but not in that context.
I had a call one morning and they said, can I talk to such and such? I said, yeah, that's me. How can I help you? This is such and such with such and such company. I'm calling to offer you a position. And I said, We haven't even been interviewed. And she says, you are exactly what we need. And then I said, okay, well, how much are you going to pay? And she tells me, and she says, how close are you getting to your license? I'm like, I'm not working on my license. She's like, what do you mean you're not working on your license? That's not what I want to do. She says, then I can't offer you the job. I said, oh well. But if I had my license, job done, making $30,000 more than I would have been making that year. So you never know when you're going to get that call. So you always want to make sure it's always updated, right? Okay. So I don't want to be a dead horse, you know.
Oh, dead horse?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Like, I'm just going over the same thing over and over and over.
Oh.
So it's a dead horse and white, you know, you don't want to kick it.
Yeah.
Right? It's
just let it be.
Yeah,
Okay. I just had to make sure. I'm like, never heard that before.
All right, so I'll tell you what, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll give out our final burn. What do you think?
Sounds great.
It's time for a break. Hot Takes with the Murph Man will return after these messages.
The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for supporting our channel by watching and listening.
Find us on the web at mbradio.web.
It's the guts and it's the glory. 100 stripes, 100 stories. It's the Pledge of Allegiance on the 4th of July. It's them handwritten letters from home. It's them sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's a line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Hey. From the fields of Indiana to the swamps of Louisiana to the golden coast of California, Uncle Sam's the only family he's got. His purple heartbeat won't stop, and his 18th birthday was the day he was born. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's the line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, stand on the front line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, pay the ultimate price. Oh. He was the man of the house when he was born. His family is proud but torn. But if you knew him, you would understand. He was raised on how to be brave, just to see the flag still wave. And then he came home with only one hand. He's Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down here to lie. For these stars and stripes, stand on these front lines. He'll pay the ultimate price. Lay down in the line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. March in line, march in line. Hey. Hey.
Before we wrap up, here's a reminder. Hot Takes with the Murph Man streams live every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern with Military Broadcast Radio. At mbradio.us, we give veterans a voice and help them launch their own podcasts. Hot Takes with the Murph Man is partnered with Squad 915 Studios, the place for premium content you won't find in the live podcast or on socials. At stream915.com, we are a local platform made for El Paso with content exclusively created by El Pasoans. Check it out. It is free to create an account. Visit purehottakes.com to connect on socials and unlock your discount link to stream915.com. All right, and we are back. You know, we've been talking about resumes, looking for jobs, how to be prepared for it, you know, how to bolster your resume, how to write it with the phrases and everything. You know, nowadays with AI, you can always go and ask it, review my resume and tell me what you think. And it will literally tell you what you think. I was hoping you would say that when we asked you about peer reviews, but you didn't.
No.
You know, yeah, you don't use AI.
Yeah, I hate.
I know.
It's not my thing.
And, you know, but if you do that, right, before you know it, it's going to be something that will review your resume for you and tell you, you know, you need to change this, this wasn't readable, whatever the case may be, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But before we wrap up the show, let's talk about our final burn in our statement. Hold on. Before we go to break, no, hold on. Because you're like all frustrated. Just all right. So now that we've talked about all this, I think it's time we go through our final burn. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
So your story is your resume. Don't let anyone else hold the pen. You want to share your story with everybody. You don't need a fancy title to provide massive value to a team. Your skills are the most important thing people need to know about. Your own journey is something that you want to document and keep track of your wins and show up ready to work. Okay, because that's what it's going to say. Like, because the first thing they're going to ask you if they offer you the job is, when can you start? And let me ask you that question, Connor. How would you do that? If someone offers you a job and they say, how soon can you start? What should your answer be?
As soon as you need me to.
Okay, but what about the job you currently have? You're just going to jump on them and, you know, throw them to the curb?
Well, I mean, did I mention my other job?
Well, yeah,
to them,
they know you have a job.
Do they though?
Yeah, so you're going to say, you know, I have to give at least 2 weeks notice.
I'm like, let me get my 2 weeks notice. Let me tell them first, and then I can start making my schedule with you guys as soon as possible.
Right. When I got the job I have now, on Wednesday before Christmas break, I was told about the job. I interviewed on Thursday, and I got hired on Friday. And I gave a 2 weeks notice. Now, this is I don't know the exact date. Let's just say the 20th of December, right? We go on break for 2 weeks. We came back on the 6th of January. And I had a start date of 9 January with my new job. And I went to my boss, and I said, my principal, I said, look, I hate to do this to you. I said, they start on the 9th, and I need to be there for the 9th for training and everything. I need to be there. And she understood. She didn't like it, but she understood.
Yeah.
And I said, but you know me. You can always call me. I'll be able to help anyone who needs anything. You know, if you need me to help you with something, just let me know. And of course, and they called me for about a month and a half or 2 months afterwards until they got the flow of how things were run, you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind that because I didn't want to just dump them, right? I wanted to use that as a reference down the road, you know. But I gave my 2 week notice, and the new boss was like, I need you to start this date. Do you think that can be done? And I said, yeah, I can do that. You know?
Yeah.
And my boss understood. The new boss understood. Everyone was happy, you know? So you want to give your notice as much as you can and be prepared to answer that question. If you get offered a job, how much time do you need to transition out of your job? Now, there's some jobs, like, for example, at the movie theater, you could quit one day and the next day someone else is hired. There's really, you know, there's nothing overlap. But what if you had like clients, like counseling, and you had to prepare them to transfer to another counselor or you had to close the cases or make sure that it can be okay changing to someone else. That takes time to transition.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a different profession. That's serious.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of things you have to take into account when you're going to put in a resignation. But be aware that, you always got to look out for number one. Who's that? You.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a do or die situation where, hey, you do this or you don't get the job, I'm sorry. That's life. And it happens, right? If you were to die today, they replace you in 2 weeks. They put a job opening that day, dude.
I want to say that day.
Okay, maybe the next day.
Yeah.
Because they got to hire someone else.
Yes.
So, yeah. So you're easily replaceable.
I mean, yeah.
Don't kill yourself for your job. All right.
It ain't worth it. Unless the pay's like really good.
Even then. Okay, because they will replace you in a heartbeat.
Not if you're like really good at the job. If they put you on the schedule for like most of the week and rely on you because you do multiple stuff at that job, they're not gonna just replace you like that.
You don't think they'll just fire you for no reason? But with that in mind, I think we put an end to today's show. What do you think?
I think so too.
All right. So everyone, I hope you guys get a good job. I look forward to seeing you out in the workforce. And see you next week.
Good night.
Hasta luego.
That's a wrap on this episode. If you're looking for more, you can find all the best clips from the show on our social media pages. For all the links and more information about what we talked about today, visit purehottakes.com. And if you want to watch the full replay or get access to our premium content, subscribe now at stream915.com. We appreciate you tuning in.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.